Welcome to the Foster. I'm Ann Baxter in Palo Alto, California, and I'm here with artist explorer Tony Foster, who is Zooming from his home studio in Cornwall, England. Welcome, Tony.
Thank you. Nice to be back.
Today we're going to talk about autumn leaves in New England of the United States. And right now I'm sitting in front of one of your larger paintings called Fall Color in Great Meadow, Concord, from Concord, Massachusetts. It's very large. Just the watercolor is 36 inches by 53 inches. And with the various souvenirs, it measures 52.5 inches by 64 inches. This and the series of 3 artworks called 6 Days on the Connecticut River were all painted on site in October of 2012. So you experienced the beautiful fall leaves, but also inclement weather. So I wondered if you could tell us a little bit about that experience painting on site in the rain.
Well, of course, I'm quite used to painting in uncomfortable circumstances, so it didn't surprise me much. And after all, you don't get the autumn color if it isn't autumn. And so that autumn invariably means you're going to get mixed weather. You're not likely to get, lovely, sunny, warm weather the whole time. So I was quite expecting that and was prepared for it.
How did you keep your spirits up when you're working in intermittent rain, frost on the tents, packing up wet tents, and slogging around through heavy rain showers?
well, the optimum word there, I think, is spirits.
We
always take 151 proof rum, and that cheers up any miserable situation. And I guess we would have a good campfire every night and sit around it and drink. Our usual evening drink is hot water, lemon, sugar, and 151 proof rum. And that really cures any ills.
Yeah.
And then during the day when I'm painting, I'm pretty hardy, really, and simply concentrate on what I'm doing. And I don't, although I feel uncomfortable sometimes, it isn't the predominant thing I'm thinking about. I'm thinking more about what I'm doing. And so I usually manage to get through fairly miserable circumstances without it affecting the work very much.
These 6 Days on the Connecticut River artworks, they're pretty small, and I'm wondering if they were done in a canoe. Like I know you had done a beautiful, beautiful painting from a canoe like 30 years before for the Rose Country journey.
Sure. Well, that was on the Concord River, of course. Yes, I did. I hammered a stake into the riverbed and tied the canoe to it and sat there all day doing the silver maple painting. But I didn't have to do that on this occasion. These were only small paintings, and I was always either on the riverbank. Well, I was always on the riverbank, or I remember on the third one, I actually climbed up onto a bluff, so I got a view down the river, down towards a bend in the river, so I could get a different perspective. But they were all fairly straightforward in terms of the actual position I was going to sit in. Yeah.
This is not your normal palette. It's much more bright orange in this painting. And so did you select different colors to bring with you for this trip?
I did. I bought a bigger variety of yellows, and also I tried to find a bigger variety of warm reds and oranges. Orange is a difficult color actually, because you put it on if you're not careful, you put it on the paper and it looks bright until it dries, and then it dries rather dull in watercolor, and so you have to be careful with that. But anyway, I managed to find a combination of colors that made it work and remain vivid. And so, I did kind of approach it fairly scientifically, knowing what I was going to be facing. The idea of cruising down, a glorious river surrounded by all this autumn color it's a magical experience, really. I mean, you're constantly taken aback by the absolute vivacity of the color. It would take a stony-hearted person not to be absolutely astonished by the variety and the light and the glitter of I mean, it's better than any firework display. I mean, just extraordinary to think that nature puts out this wonderful, wonderful thing every year, bang on time. I mean, it is an extraordinary thing, and with any luck in the world, it will continue forever. I mean, and continue reinvent itself. I mean, it's just a marvelous thing.
On this piece, there's one hidden element where you added a collage piece of some of the leaves. And can you describe that? It's somewhere, well, people who visit will have to try and find it, but you don't
It's
see them
not-
right away. But if you're just engrossed in all the colors, see, aha, you put something collaged
I
on
know,
top.
yeah. It's a bit odd. In fact, it was a mistake. I had the color had gone muddy at that particular point. I thought, oh, I can't leave it like that. And so I thought, well, I'll stick a couple of leaves over the top of it. And so I did. I painted a couple of bright looking leaves and stuck them on the top, and they didn't stick down quite properly. And so they then now look as if they're slightly three-dimensional, which gives you it's quite a nice effect. Really.
It is a good effect, I think.
Yeah, I thought, oh, perhaps
Adds to being there.
I should do more of that, but of course it was only I was trying to cover up a mistake, really.
So that was kind of at the end. You were just looking at the whole piece and thought, oh, I want to change this element.
Yeah, it was just I mean, it's a fairly prominent spot in the painting, and it just looked dull. And I thought, oh, I can't have that. We have to keep it sparkling. And so I simply repaired it, really.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
did a great job.
It's a repair that went slightly wrong, and it's turned out okay.
Yeah. Added it, yeah, as you said, it added the depth to the painting even more.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, I wanted to talk a little bit about
Mhm.
both your amazing luminaries, Peggy Brace and J. Parker Huber. They have been some of your most important
Mm.
luminaries, I would think, and advisors over the years.
Mm.
They and Peggy's husband, Bill, who sadly passed away that same year, earlier in the year that you were there painting
That's right.
for the fall.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Parker, when I was planning my Thoreau's journey, I wrote to Parker because he was the expert on Thoreau's journeys in Maine. He'd written a book on it, and he was a recognized expert on that. And I asked him if I could, as an inexperienced canoeist, whether I could actually do the Allagash, Penobscot, and Moosehead Lake trip. And he said, no, you couldn't possibly do that, but I will come and act as your guide. And I thought, blimey, that's bound to cost me a fortune. But anyway, he said, no, I'm happy to come. I'll just be your guide for nothing, and I'll write an article about you for a magazine. So I said, oh, okay, that sounds great. Before that, I'd been working in Concord. I'd obviously been down to Walden Pond and done some work, and I wanted to do the Concord River trip. So I went to see Peggy, and somebody said, oh, Peggy Brace has got a spare canoe. Talk to her. So I went and saw Peggy, and she said, oh, sure, borrow the canoe. And then she put it on the roof of her car and took it down, or took it upriver, and we dropped it into the water. And then she leaned on the bridge and shouted at me how to do the J stroke as I sort of went down around in circles. And then
She's the reason you made it back from your river trips. So that's very important.
I guess. And anyway, she waved me goodbye, and off I went, I think for about 10 days, and down the river with all my camping equipment and my painting equipment and so on. And I got to be a better canoeist as the days wore on. And so that's how I met Peggy.
One other aspect of the paintings I want to talk about is the souvenirs. And this one has the amazing medley of certain specific leaves all along the bottom and the different states of their life. I wonder if you could talk about that. These are always meaningful, but how did you decide to paint these and find the leaves? And then you also have one actual leaf in a little acrylic jewel box, and of course your map that you always have.
Yeah. Well, in that case, somebody loaned me a little hut in the woods in a place called Wakefield. And I simply went into the woods and collected those leaves and spent the weekend painting them. And I was looking for leaves which went from a lively green through to an almost purpley black, or not purpley black, a deep purpley red. And sure enough, I mean, I came back with, from the woods with a sack full of leaves and laid them out on the table, and so made a spectrum like that, and simply painted them. And it took me all weekend to do it, and it sort of nearly drives you insane, really. Just painting leaf after
They're
leaf
beautiful
after
because
leaf.
they're individual portraits of a leaf.
They are exactly that.
Detail.
Yeah. And what's so wonderful is that, in a way, I suppose you go from the micro to the macro, or whatever the phrase is, because there are all these glorious trees all in color, and then here you're studying, as you say, the differences between just ordinary leaves. how extraordinary they all are. I mean, anything ordinary studied hard enough becomes extraordinary.
Mhm.
And I try and show each character of each leaf as if it was a still life of an extraordinarily beautiful thing, which it is. And then, of course, the genuine leaf itself is simply, to prove I've actually been there and I haven't done it from a photograph.
Mhm. That shows, I think, the
Yeah,
detail.
I hope so. Yeah.
Yeah.
The painting did come out as I hoped it would, and so that's very satisfying. But and I look at it and think, how the hell did I do that? But I also, rereading the diary that's inscribed underneath it, it says, "Do I have to paint every single damn leaf?" And the point about it is, in a way, it looks as if I did, but of course I didn't. You certainly paint a certain amount of leaves because each tree has got its own individual character, and you have to, you're trying to portray that. This is not just a generic tree; it's a particular tree, and so each tree has its own character, and so in a way, it's a sort of portrait of a tree, really. It's not any other tree; it's that particular one, and so you have to be very careful. And the leaves, the leaves have to be the right shape, and they have to express what they actually look like. But of course, as you look further behind the tree, you'll see that it's much more generalized, really. And so, although it looks like it's been incredibly carefully done, it mostly hasn't really. It's just been cleverly done, and so it gives the effect that you want, which is that it looks very specific, but in fact, that's a matter of technique as much as anything. What I particularly like about it actually is the foreground, and I think there's something about that foreground. All the little foreground plants are very, very specific, and it does give you that sense of distance, which is what I wanted, and that sense that you really are sitting right in amongst the whole thing, and so I think it's pretty successful, actually. I must say, patting myself on the back. I mean, I'm glad that people enjoy it so much, which I think they do. Because
so it's very specific, but you're saying there's a little bit of looseness in there too.
Sure.
To just be absorbed in the place and drawn into the background.
Yeah, and of course the thing about fall color is it could be such a terrible cliche, couldn't it? I mean, every person has a go at painting fall color, and every chocolate box has got fall color on it, and I'm sure if you go to towns along the route where people go to look at, leaf peepers go to look at fall color, you get every kind of souvenir you want with fall color all over it, jigsaw puzzles and whatever you want. And so I like to think that this is not a cliche. I like to think that it has a sense of commitment about it, and absolute what can I say, a kind of direct response to the extraordinary beauty that I can see in front of me, and not trying to kind of make it more than it is, just simply trying to comment on the fact that it is extraordinary. And I've tried to be very straightforward about it, really. I haven't tried to exercise enormous amounts of technique. I've just done what I see.
Well, you already talked about some moments, I remember, with the rum and whatever, but is there any other aha moment that you had painting this work or on the river that you haven't mentioned yet, as far as a fun little story?
I guess the nice things are traveling with my brother. It's always I always enjoy adventures with him, and with my good friend Dory, who I met Dory in Costa Rica, and it's just great the way our lives all circle together and come apart, come together again. And the friendships made on these kind of trips are just unbreakable. I mean, they're very, very special, and without them, of course, I couldn't make the work I do make. So I'm very, very fortunate with my friends.
Well, I want to thank you once again for your time and for sharing your stories and your artwork with us. And we'll see you soon.
Yeah, hope so.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.